Too often I think people who look like me, have the gender I am, feel the way I do, stay out of discussions about issues involving other groups because we feel like it's not our place. Hello and welcome back to Bookish, and today I wanted to make what I hope is a relatively brief video in which I address the scandal, the issues going on with the Polari Prize. So the Polari Prize is a UK-based prize which awards books to LGBTQ plus authors. I think they have two categories of books. They have just regular prize books, and then they have like the first book, like if it has to be a debut novel or a book to be put on that list. And its goal is inclusivity. Its goal is to recognize the work of people who have been marginalized for far too long in society and have been excluded from these prizes. And, you know, it's not a prize that I knew a lot about before maybe 1 or 2 years ago. It's not a prize that I have to say that I followed until this year. And so, you know, to a certain extent, it's the controversy surrounding the prize that's drawn my attention. But it is a prize that I respect and whose books I, do occasionally read and am planned on reading. So what's happened here is that an author, John Boyne, who's the author of The Hearts and Invisible Furies and The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, neither of which have I read, was nominated for the Polari Prize this year for his novel Earth. And the reason why this is a controversy is that Boyne is a self-proclaimed TERF and supporter of J.K. Rowling. Now, you know, I know that she is an incredibly controversial person, and this is a really controversial position for Boyne to take. And certainly he has the right to believe and feel whatever he wants to. The question here is, does he have a right to win a prize which is specifically trying to lift people up who are members of the trans community? That's the T in LGBTQ, by the way, when he doesn't believe that their rights are equal to others. Now, if you listen to statements from John Boyne, he will tell you that he, supports the rights of trans people and he supports their right to exist. But if you read his statement, most recent statements in the Irish Times and his statements regarding the controversy surrounding his nomination for the Polari Prize, what you'll find is that he supports the rights of trans people to exist and have rights unless their rights endanger the rights of women in general. And this is just an incredibly conflicted and hypocritical position to take. You cannot support the rights of a group of people. You can't claim to support the rights of a group of people if there's an exception. If there's a point at which you say, but their rights don't count if this, they endanger another group's rights. That is inherently flawed thinking. It's inherent hypocrisy. I think that's what Boyne and the prize are engaging in. So really this comes down to, and it's been referred to as the trans debate surrounding this prize, which is, again, a misnomer. There is no trans debate. Trans people exist, and as people, they have the same rights as other people. That is really what we're debating. We're not debating, except for, the incredibly far-right bigots, hypocrites, fascists, etc., who say that no trans people exist. Open-minded people, like the people on the Polari Prize, and I assume to a certain extent John Boyne as well, accept that trans people exist, but then they want to limit their rights. Well, if trans people exist, they have the same rights everybody else does, because you can't start making categories of people who are second class, who don't get all the rights of others. And to suggest that trans people's rights only extend as far as they endanger the rights of other people, which is really what TERFs are talking about, in particular about what TERFs are talking about, endangering the rights of women, is really what the debate is about. And when you put the so-called debate in the terms of debate on rights, its ridiculousness, I think, it begins to be exposed. So, TERFs, trans exclusionary radical feminists, are women who consider themselves feminists, who see trans people as a threat. They see them either as a threat because, they feel like they're a threat in the bathrooms. They see them as a threat because they think these are essentially, most TERFs, I think these are actually men who are just trying to get in on all the victories that women have won, whether that's in sports or writing, here with the Polari Prize, or they fear that by standing up for the rights of trans women, they are endangering their own rights. So I want to focus on that last reason, since that's the one that Boyne kind of focused on in his, piece where he was celebrating J.K. Rowling in the Irish Times. This is inherently flawed thinking, and this is inherently, not inclusivity and not acceptance, because it weakens the entire, this TERF position weakens the entire idea of women's rights, where women are basically, and TERFs are saying, we don't want to include trans people because we're afraid that men, feminists, will take our rights away, that it diminishes our rights if we fight for these people's rights. Just think about how ridiculous that is. Women make up more than 50% of the population. Most women, while they may not identify themselves as feminists, they certainly would not want the rights that women have won taken away from them for the most part, and yet they're afraid that half of 1% or half of 1.5% or half of 2% of the entire world's population somehow, by sticking up for their rights, would endanger the rights of women. This is stupidity, which is used to really, I think, just be a cover for bigotry, which is what I think, really is the heart of the TERF movement. These are cisgendered women who have bigoted ideas about members of the trans community, and as such, we shouldn't take them seriously, and we should give them, we shouldn't include their ideas as legitimate ideas, which is what the Polari Prize essentially said in its, explanation, its statement about including John Boyne. They went back to, inclusivity and including the ideas of people who they may even disagree with, et cetera, et cetera. You don't have to include the ideas of bigots and hate mongers in your idea of inclusion. And we should not accept that that's what's happening with the Polari Prize. As a result of Boyne's inclusion in the Polari Prize, I think 10 of the 12 authors who were up for the first prize, the first debut novel nomination, are withdrawn. 6 of the authors who were up for the Polari Prize, which is just for open to any author or any author who's published more than one novel, have withdrawn, leaving 6 authors, including Boyne, who are still in the running for the prize. I think the short list is supposed to include 6 people. Boyne himself has come out with a statement in which, of course, he tries to make himself the victim, as bigots and racists almost always do. He tries to make himself the victim because he might face, some kind of backlash for a bigoted political position he's taken. He said, "Don't put me on the short list," which brings the list down to 5. But this really destroys the legitimacy of the Polari Prize, and I think that it's a shame that this has happened with a prize which should have been, and I believe was created with all of the best intentions. Now, I got most of my information for this video from Georgia May Reeds and her video, "The Polari Prize Has Destroyed Itself." I'll leave a link to that excellent video down below because I think you could get a lot more out of watching her video if you were interested in what I've said in this video. So that brings me then back to why I'm making this video. I think it's important for people who are not members of the LGBTQ plus community to speak up in support of trans people, to speak up in support of rights for everyone, and not just for the people who are in the majority, the people who already have power. We don't achieve real equality as human beings if we keep excluding other people and believing that trans women's rights are subject to whether or not they put in danger the rights of cis women is an inherently bigoted and hypocritical position to take. And so I just wanted to, make this video and speak out against that, and hope the Polari Prize comes to its senses and makes a decision which can salvage it moving forward. Anyway, there you go. Look forward to your thoughts in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for watching.